Hello, good morning, and welcome everyone. Welcome you to this batch of CF Final Advanced Auditing Assurance and Professional Ethics, in which we will be covering your whole of audit in full English. This is an exam oriented or a fast track batch in which we will cover all the topics of your syllabus with a object of covering the whole syllabus of audit and helping you to conceptually understand every topic and also make you capable to solve every question for it. Let us first take a quick discussion on the batch, on the duration, test, material, and then we will start with our very first chapter. So, in this batch of CF Final Audit, Namaskara, and once again, welcome. So, first and foremost, we need to understand, is audit a difficult subject, or is it difficult to write, or is it difficult to memorize? I think I should say yes, yes, yes in all of them. So I would just say it is difficult to score. That is where the problem is. And in order to score better, what you have to understand the very first day is audit is one subject, but it has different phases. Some chapters are very provision based, for which you will have to actually understand them very well. You'll have to read between the lines. And they are the ones which are going to help you score the most, both in MCQs as well as descriptive. There are a few chapters which are standard based. Nowadays, that is almost 50% of your syllabus. They are very, very critical for you to understand and also know how to apply your knowledge of standards into questions. Understanding what is this particular question really asking, which provision should I mention. And third, we have some theory chapters where you could be selective in case if you wish, because these are very, very elongated theory provisions which are there and may be difficult to memorize. So I would say some part of the subject is difficult to memorize. Some part of the subject is difficult to write as in apply that, okay, this question, these are the answers to be written. And because of that, this overall subject becomes an average scoring subject. But not to worry, guys. There are students who have secured 85 marks in audit. We get so many students who secure 70 plus in audit also. Even a bigger, larger number scoring 60 plus. But yes, the average score, not just of CA final audit, but globally in this subject of audit is comparatively less. But with this particular batch, if you see all the lectures of it and just follow a few instructions of self-study, I am more than sure that 50 is nothing and it will actually be not your target scoring just 50 marks out of it. So our coverage will be all 19 chapters. And within those 19 chapters, I would give you important topics, particularly in the theory chapters where you can focus more on them. And our approach would be ABC approach for less important topics. What it means. So though we will be covering all the topics in the batch, but the basic difference between a regular and a fast track batch is this is an exam oriented batch. So certain topics have no relevance for your exams, though they are included in your study material. So we will cover them very quickly. And the ones which are relevant could be asked in the exams, we'll cover them in all detail. So we'll cover everything, but yes, our focus will not be the same for every topic. We would build up all the concept. You need not have any prior knowledge of the subject. You should, after the class, follow a strategy of RST, which is revise the subject every day after the class. Then you should try solve questions from our question bank. I'll just give you a glimpse of the question bank which we are going to use. So this is your latest question bank which you're going to get. In this particular question bank, you will find that this is the most comprehensive publication covering all ICI study material, latest study material question, RTP question, MTP questions, past exam questions, and even questions of the old syllabus which are still relevant now. Because standards were there in old syllabus also, they are there in the new syllabus also, and their scope, in fact, more or less remains the same. This is basically how your question bank looks like. So these are the questions and then you have these answers. So it basically flows like this. For your sake, I've also given you headings for these questions, which helps you to easily kind of remember them. And we've also given reference for every question, whether it is from study material or past exam or both. In case if that particular question was asked in RTP, similar references are given. So you exactly know in the question bank which thing was asked from where. Plus any duplicate questions have been clubbed together, as you could see here. Any questions which are similar, just that the name has changed or the year has changed, have been put in one or two in that sense. But the answer remains the same. The answer is given with reference to the first question which is given. So what are these QR codes? These are audio solutions. At the moment in audit, your audio solutions are not in pure English. They are in mixed language. Though in FR, we have a full regular batch, and because we have a regular batch there, we have QR codes where you have answers in full English for all your questions of FR. That question bank is otherwise available. Nevertheless, so you have to revise what we study. You have to solve the relatable questions relating to those topics, which I'll tell you in the class, and will be self-explanatory, and then you have to give test. You will have 5 tests with suggested answers given to you, which will be covering almost 20% each of your syllabus. So which means our total batch duration is going to be somewhere around 60 hours. So every 12 hours, you will have one particular test approximately. And you should give the test and see the suggested answer. That will help you understand, number one, where are you missing out on marks? Number two, even after knowing things, you're not able to write. So that next chapters when you study in the class, and you do self-study, you know how to focus, where to focus, what things to be kept in mind. And these are all tests which I have prepared for you. And then after the batch gets over, you get one complete full mock test with suggested answer for a comprehensive assessment of your preparation. That's a very well-structured batch which you're going to have. So we'll call it the exam-focused or exam-oriented batch. And the objective is not just to cover the whole syllabus, but also give you tips so that you can revise it 1.5 days before the exam. Come on, guys. Now let's come on to our subject and let's talk about how is the subject divided. So as I told you, audit is one subject with several lives. In fact, several faces. So one face of it or one part of this is professional ethics, which is going to be the first topic where we start with. It almost have MCQ plus descriptive combined around 20% of your marks coverage, 15 to 20%. That's what the institute says, and that's what the average past term marking scheme is. And this is your last chapter, chapter 19. This is going to be the first chapter which we'll discuss. This is one important topic for us because this is very scoring, interesting, can be easily memorized and remembered, and you can score full marks on this. Then you have all standard-based chapter, which is chapter 1 to 11. These are all based on standards. This covers almost 50% of your syllabus. And here the problem is if you understand them conceptually, you'll be able to answer every question in the exam. If you don't understand them conceptually, you'll just always keep on trying a trick how to remember these. These are very much doable. And then we have all the other chapters, which is basically chapter 12 to 18. In which there are 2 new chapters which are added, which are 12 and 18. Digital audit and sustainable development goals, environment, social and governance, ESG, SDG. This chapter, both these chapters will you expect one question from them, so it has a 10% weightage. And all the remaining chapters, so this is 12 and 18, so remaining are 13, 14, 15, 16 and 17. In total have around 20-25% of weightage. These are approximated weightage. These are the chapters which has the maximum theory content, and this makes audit really difficult to memorize. But you can see that even after proper strategizing, you can still cover most part of your audit very well and remember it. And the theory portion comparative would be just lesser for you in terms of memorizing it. So this is where, you actually can have an ABC approach. I mean, you can focus more on important, less on the other topics. Other topics or other chapters, you should basically cover it well, completely. Your paper has 30 marks of objective questions, which is one correct answer MCQs, and then you have 70% descriptive. In total, you have 6 questions of 14 marks each. Each question has 3 parts, which is 5, 5 and 4 marks. So 14 into 6 question, out of which you have to solve any 5. However, the first one is compulsory. So 5 into 14 is 70 marks. 1 is optional, first is compulsory. Remember these 4 questions which you get in the exam. One question will have 3 parts. All these 3 parts would be from different chapters. So it is not that it will be all professional ethics clubbed into one particular question. So in order to do one question, you also need to know the other 2 if you're very confident in one, not on the other 2. First question usually is mostly essay based. So at least 2 parts would be based on standard. So standard becomes one of the most important topics for you because 150%. And second, it covers a major portion of your, not just the syllabus, but also the compulsory question. Our batch would be approximately 60 hours. We will basically do all concepts and develop your question solving ability, and we'll be using the drone charts and the question bank. Drone charts, sir. What are drone charts? Oh my God. Don't you know what drone charts are? You've been really missing on something. So just to give you a very quick idea in terms of how these drone charts look like, this is basically your index for your 19 chapters all covered in drone charts. The beauty of these charts is in 270 pages, you are able to cover whole of your audit. Yes, you heard it right. 270 pages. That's about it. Whole of audit covered in it. And you'll find it difficult to find something in your study material which is relevant for exam and not given in it. And this is not just bullet point chart. It has proper descriptive things, uses color coding plus a lot of visual memory aiding technique, which makes the subject very interesting to read plus very compact to cover. So this is basically what your drone charts are, and this is something which you are going to use in the class. All what is written here, these are known as board notes, and these board notes would be shared with you. So you basically get a copy of these particular board notes as a downloadable PDF just in case. Mostly everything is in the chart, so we don't have to write much except sometimes any example or scribbling is required. This is your ICI module 19 chapters heading, and this is your drone chart index with which we will be covering things. So I think we are done with our basic discussion. Apart from this, you may just have some doubts in terms of how to solve doubts. So I solve all your doubts. What you have to do is just have to email your queries at this email ID. Apart from that, you want to directly connect with me, WhatsApp me a message on this particular number, and I am available at your disposal. Apart from that, for any technical related stuff, you can mail to this. This is what is the preferred mode. Mail it and you will promptly get an answer. Please save these 2 numbers in your contact because we, in several cases, would do broadcast with you, which is basically what we are going to share with you certain set of information on terms of updates and amendments and other things. You'll get those messages only once you have saved these 2 numbers in your contact. So I think that's good to go, guys, and let's get going with the very first chapter which we have, which is Code of Ethics, or let's call it as Professional Ethics. Now, what is this particular chapter of Code of Ethics or Professional Ethics? This is, excuse me. So you call it Professional Ethics, you call it Code of Ethics. Doesn't make really too much of a difference. What makes a difference is actually that the chapter is one of the most important chapter for your exams. We'll be covering from the drone charts only, as I mentioned, and this is a sub-index of this particular chapter in terms of things which you are going to cover. We also give you one facility that after the batch, in case if there are any amendments, though amendment videos, you find it on YouTube, and the amendments are not something like the course itself has changed, then obviously a lot of things changes. But if it's just amendments, you also get the related notes in terms of their PDF or other mode, whichever we share with you through our Telegram channel, which is Sarthak Jain. Apart from that, what we've also done is any amendments which we do to the book, we create a QR code sometimes. And what we do is we update it and we update the content there. So let's say, for example, these ethics have been updated, the charts have been updated. So students, this is the updated book. In case students had the old charts, you'll find it there. Amendments, you'll find it there. So this is some kind of a facility which we use. So we use technology as much as we can for your benefit. So let's get going, guys, and let's understand what do we mean by professional ethics. Now tell me one thing. Let's conceptually develop our understanding of this. The very first thing, let me ask you is, as you see, the name says ethics. What does ethics mean? So ethics essentially would mean that a code of conduct, a good code of conduct which makes a profession or a person a better human being or a better professional. But the question is not just who creates these ethics, but what do these ethics achieve? And would it be the same for every profession? So let's say, for example, if a person comes to you, a chartered accountant, so yes, you are, of course, going to soon be. And he says that, hello, I have done some tax frauds and I want you to save me by manipulating my books of accounts or helping me to hide these frauds. Ideally, as a chartered accountant, should you accept this assignment? Oh, sir, yes, of course, a CA would. No, 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 that's not allowed. Some people may do it, but that's unethical because a CA's job is not to hide tax evasions. In fact, we should rather say that if you've evaded tax, you should rather pay it off. That's what ideally the ethics would demand. But let's say, for example, if somebody has done a murder and goes to a lawyer and says, I have done a murder, but I want you to save me the best way possible. The lawyer will not say that, sorry, I don't take cases of murder. He would say, no problem, I'll take your case. Because there is a fundamental difference between ethics of a lawyer and of a chartered accountant. Ethics of lawyer would say that everybody has a right to justice, right of being heard. Unless you're found guilty in the court of law, unless evidence is proven in that sense, you cannot be held guilty, liable, convicted. You are only an accused till that date. Whereas in case of a chartered accountant, the ethics would not say that you can help get client an opportunity of even hiding his frauds. In fact, what we can also or all anytime at best do for the client is helping save tax through legal modes, through tax planning. So if we are an auditor of a company and we find that there are misstatements or frauds done in the company, tax evasions, then we have to essentially report it, because our ethics does not say that you are a client's advocate and you should work in the interest of client. But an independent auditor is an advocate. In fact, he's an avatar for the stakeholders. He works for their benefit, so that he says that I will give you the true and the fair picture of the financial statement so that you can make meaningful decisions out of it. So my objective is not to be an advocate of my client, but basically be to an advocate of truthfulness and fairness of the financial statement, being an independent auditor. So essentially, the nature of professions are different, and accordingly, the ethics for these professions are different. You will say, but still chartered accountant do accept it. That's another matter. Like a doctor's ethics, there would be a code of ethics for doctors as well. Ideally, what the doctor's ethics would say, maybe it would say to the doctor that, doctor, you should be, remember, you have a fiduciary, a fidelity capacity, a trust capacity of trust, in fact, a relationship of trust with your client. So you should ensure that your client's information is kept secret with respect to, in fact, it is only shared with the client or people known to the client, as in the patient, if it is in the interest of the client or if the client or the patient wishes so. In exceptional cases, you could possibly hide information from the client just in case if you feel that it is more helpful for recovery of the patient. Otherwise, you should not misuse that information for your personal advantage or share it with other people. Expose your patient about his vulnerabilities with others. You should be fair. You should not be charging. In fact, their ethics would probably also say that you should not recommend any treatment or a surgery unless it is necessary. But still, you may say some doctors do it. That's another matter. So ethics, if they were not there, I mean, you can understand how bad the things or worse the situation would be. Despite we having ethics, people do contravene with it. And that is why your institute wants you to be very, very strong as far as ethics are concerned. That is why nowhere in any particular paper you will find that this chapter has insignificant weightage, because this is something which the institute for sure wants you to know and follow very well. So basically the ethics which have been created by the institute here, these ethics have been created in 3 volumes for you. It has provisions from the Chartered Accountant Act, regulations, certain notifications or guidelines issued by the Council of the CA Institute from time to time. So it is basically an assorted compilation of these materials into one particular book, which is known as Code of Ethics Volume 1, which talks about the ISBA code, which is nothing but an international ethical standard board for accountant based ethics. Volume 1 basically talks about the international code. You in your syllabus just have an overview of this code, which we'll discuss at the end. The reason for just having an overview is because ICI is a member of the International Federation of Accountants, which is the body which publishes your IFRS and your international auditing standard ISAs, and even has an international code of ethics known as the ISBA code. You being a member cannot avoid following that code, and that is why we made this code mandatory for chartered accountants in India as well. However, this code obviously is not something which is so very significant, because we also additionally have our domestic code, which is a rule-based and a principle-based code, which details out what a chartered accountant is expected not to do. Like he should keep clients' confidential information secret and confidential, should not share it. He should not generally advertise or market its products or services except in permitted means. He should not hide the misstatements in the financial statement of a client if he is the auditor or is engaged in any professional capacity with the client. So these are kind of conducts which have been prescribed, and these are specific conducts prescribed and mandatory for a chartered accountant, which is given in volume 2 of your Code of Ethics book. Though in your syllabus you have no segregation of volume 1, 2 and 3 separately, whatever is there in your course is given in your study material under one chapter, and that is what we are going to discuss. But this is just for your general knowledge. This is something which is actually must for your exams. I mean, this is discussed in detail in your syllabus. And then volume 3 is just a case law referencer, all the past cases with respect to disciplinary actions taken by the Institute for Chartered Accountants members, is what we call them, who have not followed the Code of Ethics and have been found guilty as to what they have done wrong. There is a compilation of such case laws, which is volume 3 of the book, which is known as the case law referencer, which is not in your syllabus at all. So this is no need to cover because it's not completely there in your syllabus. So we will first start with volume 2, which is the domestic code. Now, ICI volume 2 domestic code would be 90% of our discussion, in which what we have to discuss is a plethora of things, which basically starts with or includes with. So we first start with so this chapter is something which I have just created for you for the purpose of our discussion. The first thing which we'll start with is member deemed to be in practice. And what is that? In drone charts, you should directly jump on. This is your 19th chapter. And we are directly jumping on to page number 232, member deemed to be in practice. Now, what is this? Tell me one thing. Will the institute have a same code for every member? Every member as in every chartered accountant? So, let me put the question differently to you. Would the code be same for a chartered accountant who is in practice and a chartered accountant who is not in practice? I mean, chartered accountants either take practice as a profession, and then they practice in terms of doing audit of financial statements of entity and all, and then there is this other category which gets into job, and there is this third category which doesn't do anything except, let's say, teaching people like me. Hey, don't you say that. I also did job in ITC for 3 years, 2.5 years plus, and I was in their internal audit department, so I've done a lot of audit with ITC Limited. ITC, I'm sure you know about it, right? You use a lot of products of ITC, like Gold Flake. No, sir, classmate. Oh, sorry. So, a member who's in job, business, will he have the same set of principles governing him by the CA Institute in the ethics as a member who is in practice? Definitely not. Why? CA Institute, have you ever seen that a chartered accountant is advertising, like he's put up billboards, big hoardings in the city across different roads, mentioning like, Raksha Bandhan Dhamaka, your sister's return free with your return. Valentine's offer, 1+1 free, get one audit done and another free. Deepavali, Pongal Dhamaka. Get returns of your family filed at a price of just $9.99 per return. You don't see ads like these. Have you ever seen a chartered accountant playing a radio jingle like this? We are the best. We are the cheapest. Most economical. Since we are in your city, everybody else is taking rest. Because, yes, you heard it right. We are the best. You don't find these ads. Why a chartered accountant does not know how to advertise? It's not like that. He is not permitted to advertise. But with CA, Kumar Mangalam Billa is also a chartered accountant running Aditya Billa business. Aditya Billa does advertises, though he is a director in the company. But then there is no prohibition there, because if you are into business, so Aman Gupta does advertising for its board, that's okay, though he's a chartered accountant, but he's not in practice. But a chartered accountant who's practicing, the institute may not want them to advertise, because the nature of our profession is such that we should not seek work. The work should seek us. Work should come to us in practice and not the other way around. And for that particular reason, what it says is we should have a separate set of principles which should govern a member who's in practice, and separate set of principles which should govern a member who's not in practice. So the next question which comes up is that who's a member in practice? Sir, somebody who's holding a certificate of practice. Is that so? Oh, yes, sir. So let's take a situation. There's this particular guy, Balaji. And Balaji became chartered accountant. He applied for membership. He got his membership as well. And he cleared in one of those attempts where 20,000 chartered accountants passed. There was a dearth of jobs. He could sense, I have very low opportunities in this competitive market, so let's get into practice right away. So he decided, I'll practice, and I'll not practice just like a normal chartered accountant, like my CA, my principal used to practice. I'm going to change the complete way of practicing. So he started advertising like anything. He engaged a lot of influencers, fin influencers. Every fin influencer talking whether about stocks, investment, tax planning. Everybody talking about. And if you want better advice on this, go to Balaji. He's the one. He's put in hoardings across the city. This is Balaji. He's the one. Your savior from tax. He created a lot of memes with only one person can shield you from the tax authority. So Nirmala Sitharaman one side attacking, and this guy acting as a shield in front of all the other people termed as clients in that. Now, the question which comes up is he started advertising like this: social media, hoardings, radios, newspapers, everywhere, saying that yes, now in your city you have a chartered accountant who is your savior. And he also organized one particular big, large conference and said that anybody who's interested to have a CS service, CL like us, I am the one. And if you think you are also the one who needs this one, then please come to Radisson 1 Square. Don't come to Radisson Hotel, you come to Radisson Square Hotel. There, Radisson Square. There we are organizing one big, large event wherein we'll be telling about our services, and anybody who comes in will get our services at a nominal price of 100 rupees per service. That's it. He says, yeah, you have to attend it, and remember, don't forget to have your dinner after the event. Everybody is invited. I mean, he organized this particular session and this was jam-packed. It was kept in an open ground near Radisson Hotel. There were thousands of people attending it. He came on the stage, took the mic, and he said, hey, who's the one? And everybody started shouting, you the one. What is the cost of our services? Can anybody tell me, someone? And everybody shouted that, yes, we will tell you, you are the one, and it is only 100. He said, okay, here is the QR code on the screen. Just register here with your number, mention the services which you need, and you are all welcome to our chartered accountant firm, and you get these services at a nominal price of just rupees 100. My God, he got around thousands of clients on that particular day. All the other chartered accountants in practice of the city were very upset about it. As in, what is happening, guys? I mean, we've been practicing for so long and we've never advertised, and this guy who's just become a CA is advertising like hell. Somebody complained. So even the institute president came to that particular conference and he thought that I should also see Balaji and tell him, what is he doing? This is all nonsense, rubbish. As soon as Balaji did his presentation and went backstage, the president said that let me meet him. The president first had his food, free dinner, and then went and said, Balaji, are you really a chartered accountant? Balaji said, why are you doubting? You are the one who gave me the membership certificate. I could see your sign on that. Don't you remember what you signed? The president said, that's not the point. The point is, if you are a chartered accountant, tell me, haven't you cleared your paper of audit? What was your score and all? Balaji said 96. President said, how is this possible? 96 marks. He nodded. Probably he lost his 4 marks on the concept of professional ethics, member in practice. So he said, oh my God, where have you studied your audit from? He said, oh my God, what rubbish question is this? Don't you know CS Sarthak sir started full English batches? I've taken that. Sorry. So he said, if you're a chartered accountant, you've so very good marks in audit, don't you know that a member in practice is not permitted to advertise? And Balaji said, yes, I know, but you tell me, President, sir, who's a member in practice? President said, a person who holds certificate of practice. And Balaji said, I don't have a certificate of practice. And President sir told you don't have a certificate practice, and then how are you soliciting so much of work? How are you seeking so much of work? And Balaji said, I'm just seeking work. I have not started working yet. And now I'm going to apply for CAP because I've got a lot of work to do. In fact, if you have come, can you please give me the COP right away so that we can start working from tomorrow itself? Because for practicing as a chartered accountant, I'll need certificate of practice. And since you said only a chartered accountant in practice is not permitted to advertise, I am not a CA in practice as per the definition given by you. And that is why I can possibly, in fact, free to advertise, because I'm just a member like Aman Gupta, Kumar Mangalam Billa, but not a member in practice because I don't have a COP. The president was amazed. He was shocked. He was spellbound. Oh my God, this guy is something really different. His name should have been Rajnikant. What he's saying seems to be fine because he's not taken COP, so we can't bind him and tell him that code of ethics apply to CN practice, hence you cannot advertise. And he's advertising, he's seeking work. Though this is once in a lifetime opportunity, when you become a member and you're not a member in practice, you can avail this, but he's used it very well. So this means there is a flaw in the law. So obviously understand, please guys, it cannot be like this. Because if this was the case, I mean, this could have been very easily exploited by freshly qualified members. And that is why what the law says is Code of Ethics. The CA Act 1949 defines that we have different Code of Ethics principles for member in practice and others. The question is, who's a member in practice? And it says two set of people are treated as member in practice. One, the one who holds certificate of practice are treated as member in practice. That's no doubt about it. Two, a member who is deemed to be in practice under the CA Act Section 2, Subsection 2, not Clause 2, Section 2, Subsection 2. A member who is deemed to be in practice under Section 2, Subsection 2 of the CA Act is also deemed to be a member in practice and has to follow all the provisions of the Code of Ethics. In fact, he should also have taken his COP. So now the concept is not just a member in practice, it is a concept of member in practice includes two people. One who has taken COP and one who is deemed to be in practice. And both these people are bound by the code of the institute applicable to members in practice, which prohibits them to advertise, amongst a lot of other prohibitions which we are going to discuss. So the very first topic which we have to discuss in professional ethics, Code of Ethics, is what do we mean by a member who is deemed to be in practice, and hence provisions of the code apply to him as they are applicable to member in practice. Because unless we first understand who's a member in practice and who's not, we'll not be really able to classify which code principles are applicable for what and what. And what is the concept of member deemed to be in practice? It simply says that if an individual capacity or capacity of a partner in a partnership firm or an LLP, for consideration, remuneration, if you provide any of the services which are usually provided by a chartered accountant, which we have listed down, a chartered accountant in practice, you will be deemed to be in practice. Even if you're not holding a COP, you'll be deemed to be in practice. Why? Because the institute does not just wants to regulate people who have taken COP. We also want to regulate anybody who is rendering any of those set of services which are usually rendered by a chartered accountant. Any of those services which are usually rendered by a chartered accountant, which means essentially any of those particular services which the institute says is usually rendered by a CA in practice. With this background, let's study this definition. We'll get into the details of the definition. Now let's get going. So it says, a member of the institute shall be deemed to be in practice when individually or in partnership, but you can do a partnership only with CA in practice, or members of some recognized profession, which we'll discuss later, like company secretary, CMA. In consideration of remuneration, as in compensation received or to be received, it could be advance payment or in arrears. And when you perform specified services, which are termed as deeming services, which means if you do any of these services, it will be deemed that you are a CA in practice. However, please understand one thing here. And what is that? You will be deemed to be in practice only if, number one, you are a member of the institute. That means you are a chartered accountant. Somebody who's cleared his CA exams and has not yet taken a membership, these provisions will not apply, but he will not be able to then claim himself to be a chartered accountant. And see, if you're not claiming yourself to be a chartered accountant and you're not a member, you're not a member of CA, and if you want to advertise that I'm giving services of tax consultancy, otherwise nobody can prohibit you to do that. But you will not be able to do tax audits and other things. Plus, you'll not be able to say that you're a chartered accountant because you've not taken your membership. So you'll not be really able to attract people like that, as Balaji could. So number one, you're a member of the institute. Number two, individually or in partnership, you are providing services. So if you form a company and through that particular company, you provide services and you're a director of that company, then you will not be deemed to be in practice because you're providing those services in the capacity of the company. You're just an employee or director of that company. Having said that, this could become a very easy way out that we, instead of making an individual or a partnership firm, will create a company, become a director there, and that company will provide all accounting, auditing services. And then the company is also free to advertise because artificial person company is not covered under the code of ethics. And member is also not deemed to be in practice because he is not technically covered in this definition because he is not giving it individually or in partnership. So in order to tackle such situation, the institute has created a section under the C Act 1949 section 25 which says companies are not allowed to engage in the practice of accountancy, which means a company is not allowed to provide any attestation services like doing tax audit, company audit. We'll come to that a little later. What do we mean by attestation? But very briefly, you can say that there are certain powers which are given under several acts to a chartered accountant in practice, like doing company audit, tax audit, providing certificates for certain things. These powers are given only to a chartered accountant who is practicing either as an individual or as a partner in a partnership firm or LLP. If you are forming a company, becoming a director, practicing there, we are not allowing you in that case to take such assignment. So you cannot keep articles in that case. You cannot take any services, attestation work, essentially any work where you have a statutory right to conduct audits and nobody else, or only a few set of people, including you, have that right. So to exercise that right, you have to either work or act as an individual or as a partner. That is why only these provisions of CA deemed to be in practice are applicable when you are working as an individual proprietor or a partner in a firm. You're doing this for consideration. So if you're providing any service for free, let's say for example, you're doing tax filing returns, audits for any trust society and you're not charging any fees for it, then probably we will not cover it because many a times to our relatives also we'll give tax advice and all. We don't charge any consideration for it. For institute will not held us deemed to be in practice for that. And now the question which comes is what services would make us deemed to be in practice? Before that, let's take some quick questions. Can a CA in practice enter into partnership with a CA who is not in practice? First question. So seeing this provision, it says a CA in practice can enter into partnership with some set of other people also, but not in any case with CA who is not in practice. We'll discuss this later. Will a member providing accounting related service for consideration be deemed to be in practice? So it is a member. He is providing accounting related services, which are a part of deeming services. You will just get to know it very soon. And he is doing it for consideration. If nothing is mentioned, we will assume he is giving it in individual capacity. But the answer is yes, if he is providing it in individual or partner capacity. But if he provides these services as director of a company, will he be deemed to be in practice? No. He can provide accounting services. He cannot provide attestation services. What are attestation services? Where you need to use your statutory right to attest or sign or certify something. So a chartered accountant wants to practice. He can either practice as an individual proprietor or as a partner, but not as a company. Now the bigger question which is important for your exam is what do you mean by deeming services? When do we say a member is deemed to be in practice? So if a member individually or in partnership for a consideration received or to be received performs any of the specified services, he is deemed to be in practice. These are the specified services. Number one, he engages himself in the practice of accountancy. So he does anything which is usually done by a chartered accountant. If he performs or even offers to perform, as Balaji did, he didn't perform any service, but he offered to perform certain set of services, because of which he is deemed to be in practice. Hence, the provisions of members in practice code of ethics are applicable on him, which includes he cannot advertise. As he is advertised, he will be held guilty. If he offers to perform or perform services which involve auditing, verification of financial transaction, books, accounts, or records. So this is usually one of the core areas where a chartered accountant works. You don't have to remember this. This is never ever asked in exams. This is more for your understanding of member in practice. What is asked in exam is what I'll illustrate. This definition has never been referred to in any of the questions, except partly in some cases. You don't have to mug it all. So he performs auditing or verification, or he's involved in preparation, verification, certification of financial accounting and related statements. So sometimes a chartered accountant may just help you to prepare or verify the prepared, not audit them. Your financial statements. Or simply may hold to the public in that he is an accountant. So even if you don't say that I'm a chartered accountant, but if you are already a CA member and you tell people that I'm providing accounting services, even if you don't do these services like Balaji was holding himself out, that he is providing accounting services, he'll be deemed to be in practice. Why? Because he is in individual capacity for consideration offering these services. So if he is offering for free, then he will not be deemed to be in practice. So this is all continuation of deeming services. So number one was that he is practicing accountancy. Number two, either he is auditing, verifying financial transactions, books, accounts, or he is basically helping in preparation, audit of financial statements, or holding himself out as an accountant to the public. In all these cases, he is deemed to be in service. Furthermore, if he provides professional advice, so let's say professional service or assistance, professional advice, in or about matters or principles which are relating or details relating to accounting procedures, or basically anything on your financial fact or data. Procedures like recording, presenting, certifying of facts. Then also you are deemed to be in practice. So all in all, if you see point number 1, 2, 3, what it says is basically all your kind of financial accounting kind of stuff, if you're doing to any mode, you'll be deemed to be in practice, whether it is preparation, audit, or even rendering professional services or advice on it. But in this, nowhere tax return preparation has been covered. So a lot of other things are covered in the fourth part, which is renders such other services as in the opinion of council. So council actually is the highest body of ICA. See, ICI is a body corporate. It is an artificial person. It is created under an act of the parliament. So it's a statutory body. Any artificial person needs to be run by a certain set of people. And this is the council of the CA Institute, which runs the institute, which is elected every 3 years, 4 years. And that is the highest body. It has the powers to change the provisions of the act, obviously subject to approval of the parliament, or change the regulations which they themselves can change and table it to the parliament. So if in the opinion of council, you are providing any of the services which the council feels are usually given by a CA, a practicing CA, then also you will be deemed to be in practice. Now the question is, what are these other services which in the opinion of council are rendered or may be rendered by a CA in practice? These other services are termed as notified services. So the council has notified these set of services through various notifications at different point of time. And these services, notified services, which is the fourth part, which is the most important part, are divided in 2 parts. One is management consultancy services and second is attestation and other representation and other services. What it says is that any kind of management related consultancy, if you are providing. Now, management consultancy is a very broad term. So what in management consultancy? That is something which has been detailed here. You can generally say that in whatever areas you do MBA, all those areas are covered in this except marketing and sales, because that's not the forte of a chartered accountant. Now I'll explain you this further, but let me just take one example to illustrate what we are discussing so that we are all at the same page. Okay. Now, what is this which we are discussing? Just hold on, guys, for a minute and let's take a pause and try to understand. We know code of ethics is not the same for every chartered accountant. It is different for a CA in practice and not in practice. So who's a CA in practice? It includes COP holder plus deemed to be in practice. Who's deemed to be in practice? If somebody individually partnership for consideration, providing specified services, then he is deemed to be in practice. What are specified services? Accounting, auditing plus notified services. So if you are giving notified services, then also you are deemed to be in practice. So what are notified services? 2, management consultancy and others. So what is management consultancy services? It includes a lot of things, which includes number 1, financial management related consultancy services. Which means what? I am a chartered accountant. A company comes to me and says that I want your service, and I say, okay, you want your financial statements audited to be, financial statements to be audited by me? He said, no, I already have an auditor who does that. So I said, okay, you need any certificates for income tax? No. He said, no, I don't need any certificates. I have another CA who does that. I said, you want to get me do some your audit verification of financial related stuff or record any matter for you, compile accounts? He said, no, for all accounting, auditing, financial matters, I have somebody. I said, then what do you want from me? He said, I just want you to give us some investment advice as to how should and where should we manage our funds. That's it. So we just want some financial management advice from you as to where and how should we invest our funds. What are the various avenues available? And I said, oh, you just want a consultation? I said, yes. The client said, yes. He said, we'll charge you ₹1,00,000 fees for it. He said, okay. And we said, okay, we'll give you a complete report which will entail you in terms of, what all avenues of investments are available. And in fact, if you tell us your risk appetite and amount involved and your objectives of investment, I can also create an investment plan for you, which you can use to invest. He said, yes, we want you to do that. So if a chartered accountant wants to know that giving these service itself or in itself will make him deemed to be in practice because he is providing it individually or in partnership for a consideration. The answer is, though it is not covered under any member deemed to be in practice 1, 2, 3 clauses of your definition of section 2, subsection 2. But in your management consultancy services, point number 1, financial management, this is a financial management related consultancy service. And if you're providing such consultancy service, you'll be deemed to be in practice. Sir, but this anybody can provide, an MBA can also give it. Why just a CA can give it? That is what I wanted to tell you. Precisely, that's the reason which I took this example, that management consultancy services here do not only include services which are exclusively reserved for a chartered accountant, but it includes all sort of services which are providable by a chartered accountant and even by a non-CA. Because the institute runs with a different logic. What it says is, we believe usually a chartered accountant provides these services, or he can provide these services even if he is in practice. Now, when a person goes to an MBA and goes to a CA, he has different sets of expectation. He feels with chartered accountants, he is in safer hands. These are more reliable guys. They will do more detailed working. So he has certain expectations from you. And for that particular reason, we want you, member, to be covered or treated as a CA in practice so that we can regulate you more. We can make compulsory trainings on you mandatory. We can avoid you from advertising, making false commitments. Because we want to regulate, In fact, ensure that the image of the profession is intact. So please understand, these services are not going to include those services which are exclusively reserved for a CA only. These could be any services which could be given by any non-CA also. But if a CA is providing these services for consideration individually or in partnership, he will be deemed to be in practice. So let's say, for example, I've completed my chartered accountancy course, taken the membership. I am not doing any audit, company audit, tax audit, anything, but I'm just providing investment advisory services in individual capacity. Will I be deemed to be in practice? Yes, you will be. But why, sir? I'm just giving investment advice. Because normally these services are given by a CA. That's why the institute has included that as a part of management consultancy services. And if you provide these services in individual capacity for consideration, you are deemed to be in practice. So I hope this is absolutely clear to you. So, number one is, any of these services, if you are providing, you will be deemed to be in practice. If you are a member, obviously. If you are not a member, no. Now, financial management related, would it include investment advice? Yes, it does. It is a part of it. But what it does not include is portfolio management. This service is not what the institute wants to cover under management consultancy services. So what it means is, it means two things. What is portfolio management? Number one, it basically means managing funds of clients. So here a client gives you the money and says, you invest on my behalf. I am giving you a power of attorney to invest my money on your behalf. I don't want a chartered accountant doing that, because that's not our core business. You can give advice, consultation, but not manage funds. So advice is basically, only providing advice, but not managing the funds of client. Portfolio management is managing funds of the client. Now, this is not included in management consultancy services. What does this mean? This means a CA in practice cannot provide these services. It also means a CA not in practice providing management consultancy services, providing portfolio management services will not be deemed to be in practice. So that's a good thing, sir. If we manage portfolio, we will not be deemed to be in practice. So we don't have to take COP. We will not be covered in the institute's code for CA in practice. Absolutely. So that's nice. Yeah, I think it is. But then, as soon as you decide that, okay, we are going to give portfolio management services, we will not take COP, we will also not be required to take it. The institute will say, now because you're doing a business which is not a business of chartered accountancy profession by providing such services. Now, if you want to also practice as a chartered accountant, we will usually not allow you to. So there is one clause 11 which we'll discuss, which says what? If a CA is engaged in any other business or occupation, let's say of portfolio management, which is not a part of CA related services like management consultancy service, or if you are engaged in any other business or profession, and you also want to hold COP, we will not allow you in usual cases. You will have to seek permission of the council. If the council feels okay, they will provide. That means you have to choose between her or her. It is this or that. So your mother has refused that, no, she cannot be our bahu, my daughter-in-law, your wife. And we say, no, mother, either it will be her or it will be nobody. So mother says, okay, then you make a choice, her or me. It's like that. So if you choose her portfolio management services, Then you choose her and you do portfolio management. Then you cannot take practice. So you cannot choose another simultaneously. So you cannot engage yourself into CA practice. So you will lose all your powers to keep articles, provide attestation work. In fact, then in that particular case, even if you would not have done chartered accountancy, maybe just that CFA or something, you could have still become a portfolio manager. So your degree is not really going to give you any powers to do something which is exclusively reserved for a chartered accountant, because you are no more in practice. Second, you are not also simultaneously allowed to have a practice because you are engaged in any other business or occupation. So many a times the institute will ask you to create a line or take a decision whether you want to do practice and provide all the services which are a part of management consultancy services as a practice in CA, or do something else. If you want to do something else, do that, not practice. So it is either mother or her. If you not have both of them together. Bad luck. Anyway, so if you get a question, a CA is in practice and wants to provide portfolio management services, the answer is sorry, you cannot. Let me just tell you in terms of, what kind of questions you can expect out of it. Let me just take you to the professional ethics and liabilities of auditor. Chapter 19, part of question bank, which we have. It's very well sorted so that after the class, you exactly know which questions now you should be able to do. We have started first with the provisions of the Chartered Accountant Act. ISBA code, we will take it up later. Within this, let's say this particular question, which says that practicing chartered accountant provides consultancy and other services. Growing needs, he wants to invest in stock market. So he advised them on portfolio management services and manage portfolio of some of its clients. So advisory on portfolio is okay. Problem is managing client. Now, you're already a CA in practice. If you are a CA in practice, you are prohibited to provide portfolio management service. So your answer would be you cannot. How to write answer? We'll first start with a. So whenever any particular answer is based on provision of law, we first start with the provision saying that as per Chartered Accountant Act, Section 2, Subsection 2, Clause 4, a chartered accountant can provide notified services, within which management, consultancy, and other notified services are there, within which you are allowed to practice as an investment advisor, but you are specifically not allowed to provide portfolio management services. Because here in this case, you have given portfolio management and managed their portfolio and you are a CA in practice, you are guilty of misconduct because you're not allowed to manage portfolios. I hope this is making sense. A lot of other things which was mentioned in the answer, once you study the whole provision, then you'll understand it better. Cool. So that was just one example. Then you have cost management related services, which is fine. Business management and organization services and management, business consultancy, whether to acquire this business or not, whether to continue this business, whether to shut it down. Systems management services. EDP is electronic data processing, which is nothing but computerized accounting. It says services to analyze and design system for any particular company. A lot of chartered accountants nowadays are into ERP implementation. They help mid-sized businesses apply SAP or similar softwares in their entity and automate their work process flow. So a CA in practice is allowed to provide these services. Now, these means two things. Please understand. If I ask you one question now, tell me, what do you think the gamut of services which we are going to discuss in management consultancy services, is it wider the better or narrower the better? What do you feel? The more the number of services are mentioned under management consultancy services, the better it would be, or it won't be to your benefit. So please understand. It has two implications. Number one, if these set of services or the list here is pretty large, it is good for a CA who's in practice. Because suppose in this list of service, the institute permitted investment advice, portfolio management, then a CA in practice could have provided portfolio management also. But because that is prohibited, he cannot provide that. So if the list is large, a CA in practice would be happy because he can provide all these services. And if the list is short or something is not included in that list, it means that it will have two things. One, if you are a CA in practice, you cannot provide that. Two, it also means that if you provide those services only and not any of these other services, you will not be deemed to be in practice. So it basically depends. The answer to the question, is the gamut of services given under MCS, management consultancy service, wider the better? It depends. If you are a CA in practice, the answer is yes. If you're not a CA in practice and you want to get or avoid this web of getting caught into becoming a CA in practice, you will rather prefer this to be narrower the better. The reason I'm telling you this is that you can get both kinds of questions in the exam. Number one, a CA in practice is wanting to provide such service. Can he do that or not? So if it is included in this, your answer is yes, else no. Number two, a CA who is not having a COP and providing this service, whether he'll be deemed to be in practice. So those questions will also be answered using these fundamentals. Okay, so we're talking about systems management. Let's say system analysis design. Computer related service like selecting hardware, development of software, in areas which can otherwise be rendered by a CA. So I'm not talking about website development and all, but more in terms of accounting softwares and all. And also to carry out other professional service relating to electronic data processing, which means like, computerization of records and stuff like that. Now, in your exams, these explanations are important for you to go through. Because if you get a question on systems development, you will have to write a couple of lines on this, otherwise you will lose marks. Meaning what? Let me take another example for you. Management operational audit, as in managerial audits, as in your management function is doing well or not. Inventory management related, as in how are you managing your EOQ, economic order quantity, reorder levels, holding cost optimization, stuff like that. Let's see this one. Human resource management, human resource development, which includes training, creating job descriptions, then evaluating jobs, workloads of people to see whether we have a proper work allocation between people or not. Organizational study, behavioral study of people. So this is basically HR management. Means what? So let's first go through the provisions. Organization structure and behavior of the people in the organization to be studied by any consultants, suggesting, are we having good employee motivation or not? Do we have any structural problems in our business which we need to correct in terms of the management structure? Development of human resource through training programs. Work studies, studying in terms of, is the work properly allocated or not? Job descriptions, have we clearly defined responsibilities of people? Job evaluation, workload evaluation. These kind of things usually a management MBA would provide. But it is included as a part of notified services for a CA in practice. So CA giving these services in individual partnership capacity for consideration will be deemed to be in practice. Or the other way is CA in practice can provide such service. Now, there's these couple of lines which are given here. What are the importance of these lines? Let me just explain that to you. I'll also explain you how the marking scheme of the institute runs for your paper of audit. Question is, a practicing CA agreed to select and recruit people, conduct training program for and on behalf of client. Is this a misconduct? So you are saying you are a practicing chartered accountant and you are providing these services. Is there any problem in that? So no, because this is a part of HR consultancy management services, which a chartered accountant in practice can provide. It's a part of management consultancy service. Now, how do you write your answer? Section 2, subsection 2. says a member will be deemed to be in practice if he provides any of the services, which includes notified services, which includes management consultancy services, which include HR management services. So you have given reference of 2.2. Clause 4 then says you can enter into management consultancy and other service. Consultancy services include a whole lot of things, including personnel recruitment and selection. Now, all this what you have written here will give you, if this is a 4-mark question, you will get 1 to 2 marks for your conclusion. You will get basically 1 to 2 marks for this. And this definitely would be 1 mark. Where what you are doing is you're just defining what do we mean by personnel recruitment and selection or HR consultancy service. So this includes development of human resource, including designing training program, work study, job description, evaluation of workloads, etc. So this one line, if you don't write, you have a possibility of losing 1 mark. And see, what I am of the opinion is where you can score, you should try to score maximum. I know a lot of our students have secured ranks. And ranks like, AIR 8, AIR 3, 9. They have shared, you can find their interviews also, some cases in YouTube, on our YouTube channel, that we didn't attempt 100 marks paper. We attempted 88 marks, 92 marks. We left few questions because we are of the opinion whatever we attempt, we will attempt it very accurately. I'm not saying every ranker follows that strategy. Some people ensure that, we attempt every question so that we at least get some marks in all questions. But see, what I'm trying to tell you is that every ranker will try to make sure that if you're getting a full toss, you make the most out of it. The simple question, if you just casually handle it and you don't make runs out of it, please understand there are going to be those difficult questions. How do you expect you're going to make more runs in those difficult ones or difficult balls? So I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say. Questions like this, you should score 100%. For that, you should not miss out on anything. Which includes you should also not miss out on small explanation like this. This may not be accurate, but it should be there existent in your answer. So that is why please understand whatever I've included in the drone charts are matters which are all relevant for your exams and would require citation if you have a question on that. So please don't miss out on any particular aspect. You can just generally go through it and may not remember it in all details or 100%, but yes, at least a bit of it should be mentioned. So with this question answer, I'm so explaining you what kind of questions do you get on these provisions, how to write and how to score best out of it. Next. Valuation of shares in business, market research. Other decision-making services, being an advisor or consultant to an issue or public issue or something, registrar to an issue but not merchant banking. This is also important. So 2 exclusions are very important. One, you cannot provide, in practice, cannot provide portfolio management services, and second, you cannot do merchant banking. What is merchant banking, sir? Merchant banking basically means that a company coming out with a public issue of shares, debentures, recruits a merchant banker, appoints, engages a merchant banker, and tells that you manage the whole show, which primarily includes advertising the public issue, coordinating with a lot of brokers, potential investors, ensuring that we get our full subscription. Because this involves a sales pitch, underwriting. You're committing, guaranteeing that we'll ensure that the issue is fully subscribed or X times subscribed. And if not, we will buy those different shares or a shortfall. This is more of a guarantor kind of a role where you're doing more of marketing stuff rather than actually providing consultation. That is why the institute has specifically said that you cannot be a merchant banker, but you can be an advisor to or a consultant to an issue. So this is green, but this is red, not permitted. So the green part is advisor or consultant to an issue. What does that mean? So this basically means providing all consultancy related services to an issue, which could include a whole lot of things like making the prospectus, filing it for listing, SEBI's formality compliance, compliance of formality of ROC, exchange, making a budget, selecting the media, holding conferences, banker to an issue, collection, broker, underwriter. What you are doing is basically you are assisting to recruit. So you are helping them to identify, engage these people, but you are yourself not doing these things, right? You're not underwriting yourself. You're not a banker to an issue where you will get money. Obviously, it will be a bank. They are helping them to arrange these people. Then who could be registered to an issue? Who should be printing your memorandum of association, article of association, prospectus, or whatever things. I mean, prospectus in case of publication. Who can you use for advertising your public issue? And then once issue is done, ensuring allotment is done, instruments are listed, we dispatch the certificates and all that. So remember, this is permitted, but any kind of broking, underwriting, or portfolio management is not permitted. So you'll also have to briefly remember these 4 points. Number 1, a public issue starts with prospectus. So this is the keyword. Then it includes selection of a lot of people who will be useful for you for this public issue. So that's the second one. The third one is also again relating to the second one, selection of registrar and all. And finally, once your issue is done, post-issue support services. All these services you are permitted to provide if you are a CA in practice, and if you provide, you'll be deemed to be in practice. This is advisor to an issue, consultant to an issue. You can do quality audit, environment audit, energy audit. You can work as recovery consultant in the banking sector. What it means? One, only in banking sector. Two, a consultant but not an agent. What is the difference? An agent recovers your debt. You cannot be a one who is recovering debt as in sending bounces to people and saying that my client is asked to recover money from you. You've taken loan from them. I'm just a consultant. I'll just negotiate with the borrower, the banker, and ensure that if the money is not coming somehow or the other, it gets settled. So you can be a consultant. RBI empanel such consultant. They have a particular fees which they get if the settlement happens within the bank, normally with non-performing NPA assets. You can work that ways for a banking sector, but not for other sectors. And also just be a consultant. You can give insurance advice, but not brokerage. So you cannot sell insurance policies or collect brokerages from insurance company or consultancy fees for selling their policies. You're not allowed to sell LICs or general insurance. You're permitted to act as insolvency professional or registered valuer, but registered valuer only for securities or financial assets and not for PP like assets. The things which are in our domain as in valuation of security, because that's more of a financial matter. And you're also allowed to give admin services, which are basically services which are clerical in nature and involve little professional judgment, like compiling your data into accounts, ensuring that the vouchers are entered in the books, filing returns, keeping a track of, when to file returns. So data entry services, filling of statutory forms and all, submitting the forms, ROC forms, other forms, monitoring statutory filing dates, advising, like a GST practitioner or stuff. These are the kind of services which are also allowed as a part of administrative services. You need to remember them. You need to remember this as well. Advisor or consultant to an issue. Merchant banker, portfolio management. These are some important services. HR management, systems management, all which are being detailed. So try to remember as much as you can for it. But I told you that within management consultancy services, within section 2, subsection 2, clause 4, other services, there are 2 services, management consultancy service and other notified service. So let's come to other notified services and representation services. A CA will be deemed to be in practice if he, in professional capacity, but not personal capacity, as in personally without any consideration to your friends, relatives, anybody. nor as an employee if you're providing. So I did internal audit in ITC as an employee of that. So I was not deemed to be in practice because I was working as an employee, not as a partner or a individual. So in professional capacity, if you act as a liquidator, you can. So liquidator is a person who, when a company gets liquidated, we basically help them realize the asset and sell the liabilities and share the remaining with shareholders. Trustees, whenever a person wants to create a trust and manage property under trust, you can be appointed as a trustee to that trust. Executor, when a person dies, a person could execute, or he has a will that is to be executed, in short, that it is followed. That is executor. You can, as a CA, be an executor of wills as a professional for services. See, for you, if you're doing for your own family or something, that is definitely not deeming you to be in service or practice because you're not doing it for consideration. Administrator, which is basically for assets. People sometimes appoint somebody who can take care of their assets like real estate, property and all if they're out of country. Arbitrator, you understand, somebody who helps in out of court settlement. Official receiver or receiver, somebody becomes insolvent, then how to settle the dues. That is the work of an official receiver. And then there are these other set of services which are given, which is advisor or representative for any costing, financial or taxation matters. Now this will help you to understand what I was talking about earlier. If you are working as an advisor, even in taxation matters, and if you are a CA in practice, if you are a CA. So I'm just a chartered accountant. I do no attestation work, nothing, but I just provide tax consultancy for money individually. I'll be deemed to be in practice because I'll be covered under notified and other services that I'm providing, representation and other notified services. I'm providing services of advisor on taxation matter. So on any financial costing or taxation matter, if you provide any kind of just simple advice or you represent the client in front of Commissioner Appeals Tribunal for his tax related cases, you will be deemed to be in practice. You need to have a COP for it. So all matters like costing, financial and transaction. So let me ask you a question here. When I was working in ITC as an internal audit, all my other friends had done their articleship from Big Four. I was the only one who did it from a mid-sized small firm. So I had exposure of filing income tax returns and all. Everybody else's was mostly in audit. So as the year passed by, we got our first annual salary completed and we had to file our first income tax return. So I knew how to file it. I filed it because nowadays it's very easy. Earlier it used to be a little more tricky. So the others asked me, did you file your income tax return and how did you file it? I said, I just filed it myself. And he said, oh, why can you help us file it? I said, no problem. Why not? I would. So all my colleagues and friends, I filed their income tax return as well. In fact, I also gave them consultation as to how can they avoid tax by, claiming some exemptions on transport allowances and other. They're all very happy. They recommended it to other people in ITC who were doing jobs in ITC, who were not a part of my team or group, but others, engineers, MBAs. So they also started approaching me saying, hey, Sarthak, we want to file our income tax returns and we don't have a CA yet. So can you help us file it? And I said, wow, this file looks to be a bonus, an additional source of income for me. And I mean, beyond stipend, even in the offices, we used to get some extra incentive on the outstation audits where we used to go and used to get some out-of-pocket expenses. Those savings used to be, we used to relish that saving. So I said, why not? So I said, okay, I'll just need $500 for one return and I'll file it for you. And I'll also give you advice how to save taxes. So I started taking money from people, giving them tax advice. They were all other employees of ITC only, and helping them file their returns. Am I now a CA who is deemed to be in practice? Yes. Why? Because now, though I was doing internal audit in ITC, I was doing as an employee of ITC. But this I'm not doing as an employee. It was not that ITC has appointed me in their HR department saying that you help all the employees file their income tax returns year. And we'll pay you salary for it. You don't charge anybody for it. No. I'm doing this individually, out of office hours, separately. So I'm a CA in service and I've also started practicing. Why? Because for consideration, I'm giving them tax advice, representation or advisory services. Administrative services like filing of their returns. So this is deeming me to be in practice. I should take COP. And usually institute will not allow me because I am also doing job and also practicing. It will become difficult for me to do that. I'll have to choose one, either her or mother. It's that situation. So please understand that even these services, if you provide, you will be deemed to be in practice. So you should be very careful in providing these services. Some people may say, sir, you're saying so, but who will be able to detect? In fact, you said you provided these services. That was an arbitrary example. It was not real. But sir, if you provided these services, I mean, how will ICI come to know about it and how will somebody else guilty? That's the reason why we have all these non-compliances of law existence on this particular earth. If everybody is following the law to the brim, I mean, completely, there would be no non-compliances. We would be living under a situation of Ram Raj, the golden era, where everything was as per the books, as per the law, correct? That doesn't happen like that. So people do contravene with the provisions and they don't get caught, and that happens so very often. Maybe because cheating is an art unless you get caught. Only if you get caught, you are punished, penalized. What I'm trying to tell you here or explain you is that when you study the law, you don't study it like this. How will I get caught even if I do this? You rather study that this is not permitted or prohibited. So you should not be doing that. Or even if you do that, remember, this is a misconduct. You may be held liable if you get caught. Now, if you feel I'll not get caught, please be my guest. Do all these non-compliances and just keep praying. And that's why probably we pray that we don't get caught. And also, no, we don't pray for that. Okay, that's another thing. But I hope you are understanding. So please, when you read the provisions of the law, don't expect or don't think it like this. Otherwise, you will not be able to grasp it well and answer your exam questions well. That, how will I get caught? Rather, this is the law. So if I get caught, I'll be held guilty. Whether I'll get caught or not is something different. And that is what gives power to a lot of people to do contravention of the law, because they know they will not be caught. Then, if you take up appointment of central or state government or any court or any authority, for that matter, like say ROC or anybody, or act as a secretary, but not as an employee, then also you are deemed to be in practice. Normally, central government, state government, court of law may appoint, let's say, people like liquidator, etc. Surveyors, liquidators, to whom we will, sometimes court will say, okay, that you do an assessment and submit an independent report based on which then we will decide what is to be done, whether there's a fraud or not or something. So if you take up any such assignment from them, obviously financial related, you'll be deemed to be in practice. Unless you have taken a job with central government as a liquidator of company on behalf of government, then definitely not. Now, sometimes while doing CA, you might have completed your CMA, CS or other degrees parallelly or later or earlier. Now, assuming these professions also, which they actually do, also have similar provisions of deemed to be in practice. So, a chartered accountant, like a CMA as cost and management accountant, his code of ethics would also have a provision which would say that if a cost accountant for individual or partnership for remuneration provides costing representation services, he will be deemed to be in practice. So you are a CA, you are also a CMA. What I'm talking about is there is this particular guy who studied too much and he is a CA and a CMA both. And he provides, let's say, consulting on costing matters. Is he deemed in practice under the Chartered Accountants Act or the Act for Cost and Management Accounting, or both? So he'll be deemed to be in practice under both, because a chartered accountant can also provide costing representation or advisory services, and obviously I'm assuming CMA also can. So the question comes is, 1, do I need to take 2 COPs? And 2, can I take 2 COPs? So first, let's answer the second question. Can I take 2 COPs? Certificate of Practice. ICI says that we allow you to take dual COPs. Means if you are a practicing chartered accountant and you also want to take a COP, Certificate of Practice of CMA, CS or Advocacy, 3 professions you are allowed from CA Institute side. But we say this is allowed if the other institute also allows you to do that. And usually other institute do not permit, because they don't want chartered accountants to enter into their zone. So they will say, no, either you do CA practice or you do R practice, not both. But if you get a question in the exam, you'll say that dual COP ICI permits provided other institute permits, full stop. So in case if the CMA institute permits you to take a COP of CMA also, then there is no problem. But then next, the problem comes is if the CMA institute refuses and says no, either you take Certificate of Practice under the CA Act or the CMA Act, then what? Because even if I take Certificate of Practice under the CMA Act and practice as a cost advisor, I'll still deem to be in practice under the CA Act, because I am a chartered accountant member and also a CMA. For individual, for capacity, for remuneration, I'm providing this service. My God. For that particular reason, CA, CS, CMA, these 3 institutes have entered into a mutual agreement that if any of our member is providing services which are permitted in our own gamut of services, list of services, and if that same service is also included in the other professions list of services provided by their member in practice, then we will not hold them to be deemed to be in practice if they are already holding a Certificate of Practice under the other act. So if you are a member opting for practice under sister concern, you will not be deemed to be practice under the CA. So if you have taken Certificate of Practice of CMA Institute, you're providing cost advisory, ICI will not assume that you are or deemed to be in practice if you are providing costing advisory services or services which are included in the list of CMA services in their act. And that's a mutual arrangement which they have done. Apart from that, talking about dual COP, it is permitted with CS, Advocate, CMA. It does not prohibit. Any other profession for the moment, no. But ICI says other institutes should also allow. Then there is a provision which says that, it's a very old provision, member of the institute will be deemed to be in practice during the period he renders services with the armed forces. Armed forces, as in earlier, that used to be that, when we used to be under war, everybody who was fit was required to serve the army for a particular period of time. Now, CA may be providing, let's say if the company is under war, maybe providing army services relating to where he can function or assist, accounting, auditing services. So he'll be deemed to be in practice. We'll just consider it as normal. Similarly, if you are holding a COP and for some time, if you have to provide services or armed forces and you cannot do other act, during that period also you'll be treated as a member in practice only. So very specific provision on that. Though recently there was one small question involving this. Nothing much. So let's see a few teaser questions here. A CA also CSCMA, holding COP of CSCMA, CS or CMA, whether deemed to be in practice if his work is also covered under 2.2. So the answer is no, because of this mutual agreement between the institutes. You will not get a question on this, it's just for your knowledge. A CA in service, is he deemed to be in practice if engaged in deeming services? So if he's doing those services as an employee of the company, like I did internal audit and ITC, no. Can a CA provide service of a recovery agent? Never. These are just a few questions. Cool. So this basically covers a very important topic, which is what do you mean by a member in practice? Or a member not in practice actually is what we've studied. We've just studied a part of it, which is a member deemed to be in practice. Let's take a break now. After the break, then we'll take the other set of provisions available here. Thank you. Okay, guys, so welcome back. And now let's continue with our discussion. So what we've discussed is member deemed to be in practice. Now, who's a member, certificate of practice, and other terminologies are also to be discussed. Section 19 talks about register of member. This is that register in which if your name is mentioned, you will be regarded as a member. So you don't have to remember these section numbers per se. Anyway, this is not one of the important sections, and it says that in the register of members, certain particulars are to be included for every member, which has the name, date of birth, domicile as in country, residential and professional address, the date of entry of name. This is your date of membership. Qualifications. Are you holding COP or the prescribed particulars? So who's a member of the institute? Section 4 says a person who's entitled to enter his name as member will be treated as a member once his name is entered in the register of member. So it's like entitled to enter your name will be treated as member once you pay the prescribed fees for membership and your name is entered in the register of members mentioned under section 19. Who's entitled to be a member? Was cleared his CA exams, articleship training, and your MCS advanced ITT courses. You have to apply for membership. So once you clear your CA exam, you don't get it automatically. You have to apply for membership, fill in certain details, pay the eligibility fees, and address it to the secretary. It is online nowadays, and you get your membership. Once a member, always a member? No. You can opt to suo motu on your own. You can opt to cancel your name from the membership. What will be the benefit of it? You want to surrender your membership for any reason. You don't want to get deemed to be in practice by doing any of the specified services. So you surrender your membership. On death, automatically your name will be removed. If in case you don't pay the prescribed membership fees, which is payable every year, usually the date is 30th September. If you don't pay it by that date, then we will remove or strike off your name. However, if you pay it back, your name will be reinstituted. Apart from that, if you become disabled from membership, that means you become of unsound mind and few other disabilities are given, then also your membership would be taken off. And if it has ceased for any other reason like misconduct and the institute wants to take away your membership, these are the cases where your membership will be taken off. A membership once taken off, can it be restored? It depends. You have to apply for restoration and with any fees applicable, and if this restoration is due to late payment of fees, so you didn't pay your membership fees on due date and you have paid it late, then you paid late and then you make an application. Your fees or membership will be restored with effect from the date which it was removed. So 30th September was due date, 1st October your name you removed. So it will be restated from 1st October. Provided you make the payment within the same year of removal. That means in the same financial year. So your fees was due on September 24, and if you paid even till March 25, financial year is the year, then your membership will be restored right from 1st October 2024, from the date when it was removed. So there will be no break in your membership period. It will continue. But if you don't pay in the same financial year and you pay it in the next year, then it will be restored from the date of payment of fees. So if you pay it in April 25, it will be restored from April 25. So there will be a gap in your continuous membership in between. In case if your name is removed due to any order of the Board of Discipline or Disciplinary Committee or Appellate Authority or High Court, that means you've done some misconduct and hence your name has been removed. Then if it is to be restored, it will be as per the orders. So let's say your name was removed and then you went to the High Court and you made an appeal and then you won it. Then the High Court will say that, okay, restore its name right from the date when you have removed it or prospectively, and you accordingly do it. In any other case, it will be from the date on which application and fees are received. So it is not retrospectively otherwise. So in case of fees paid after the due date, but in the same financial year, it will be retrospective restoration. Otherwise, it will be prospective. In cases where your membership is restored or taken off due to any order of any authority, it will be as per the order. Now, section 6 is important. It says you have to take certificate of practice before you even become deemed to be in practice. Number 1. So if you do anything which will make you a member deemed to be in practice, you first obtain COP, not just apply, obtain COP. Only then you do anything which will deem you to be in practice. Otherwise, you will be guilty of misconduct. So if I am wanting to hold myself out as an accountant to the public like Balaji did, I know I'll be deemed to be in practice. So I should first apply for COP, get my COP, only then I can make an announcement that I'm giving these services. And obviously all provisions of member in practice of the professional ethics would be applicable on me. So I'll not be able to advertise. Generally. There are exceptions to it. So the COP is to be obtained before you even become deemed to be in practice. Only once you obtain, you can start your practice or do anything which will deem you to be in practice. Now, any member who is holding a certificate of practice is regarded as a member in practice. And also understand that a member can practice only in the capacity of member and not in any other form. I repeat, a member can practice only in the capacity of a member in practice and not in any other form if he is doing it individually or in partnership. What does this mean? Let me elaborate. This is actually a case of AC Kahir which happened. He did some misconduct. Institutes suspended him for 6 months. So he was told that for 6 months he cannot practice. He was a member. His COP was suspended for 6 months. During this 6-month period, what he did is he stopped using the chartered accountant designation. So he said that, oh my God, I've been removed from practice. My God, what will I do? I have a family to run. Dear ICI, please forgive us for our misconduct, misdeed. ICI said, okay, after 6 months, we'll restore your practice. But you need to be punished 6 months. You are not allowed to practice. And he said, oh my God, now I do something. I need to do something for myself, for my family. How will I sustain them? I need money. So this guy, he stopped using the chartered accountant designation. He stopped using those written cards. In his office, he removed all his CA related stuff, and he had hung a board on tax consultant in his office. And he started providing tax consultation, advisory, representation services in the capacity of an individual, not saying that I'm a chartered accountant. Again, the institute got to know about it, that he's been suspended for 6 months, but he started practicing as a tax consultant advisor. So the institute came back and said, Kahir, what are you up to? We told you you're suspended for 6 months. You want an extension of your suspension. And Kahir said, Dear ICI, please understand, I am not practicing in the name of chartered accountant. I am nowhere using that designation. So can he do tax consultancy knowing the fact that A, he's a member, B, his COP is suspended, C, he's doing it for remuneration in individual capacity without using the chartered accountant designation? Is he allowed to practice? And that is where it was decided by the council that he cannot, because he still is a member. And if a member in individual or partnership for remuneration provides any of the services as a part of notified service, which includes tax representation advisory service, he'll be deemed to be in practice. It makes no difference whether you are providing those services, nomenclating, showing, designating yourself as a chartered accountant or not. That is why it is a significance of COP that a member can only provide the specified services in the capacity of member. That means only after having a certificate of practice. So if the COP is suspended, then too you cannot appear in any other capacity for those things which are a part of your deeming services. Unless you have COP, you cannot practice even when it is applied. And council has the power to cancel your COP in case if it is required on any situations of misconducts. Cool. When can the certificate of practice be cancelled and when it can be restored? So if you have given incorrect details, if you have not paid the fees for practice, so you know there's a separate fees for membership and separate fees for getting into practice. How will it restore? So again, you'll have to fill the, if it is due to fees, then you'll have to pay the fees, file an application, and additional fees for restoration. If it is due to other reason, you'll have to give an explanation. So yeah, that's about it with respect to significance of certificate of practice. I hope this is all clear. This is a little confusing stuff, but I hope this is clear to you. And now when we're done, we will discuss section 7, designation. We will further discuss this when we study class 7, schedule 1, part 1. But let's start with our discussion here. This is very simple. If you are a chartered accountant, normally you would have seen people use such kind of visiting cards, wherein they use a CA prefix before their name. This is known as prefix, anything which you fix before your name, and this is known as suffix, what you fix after your name. Then obviously in your stationery, you will mention that you will designate yourself as like a chartered accountant, partner, director. This is something which is known as designation or description. How do you describe yourself or designate yourself? So director, chartered accountant, these are designations. Or you can say that I'm a tax consultant, management advisor, portfolio advisor. These are descriptions. So these are synonymous terms. The rules for them are same, which we are going to discuss. And then you also tend to show your qualifications through some abbreviations. Bachelor of Commerce, Associate Chartered Accountant, Associate Company Secretary, Masters of Commerce, LLB, which is basically Bachelors of Law. These are letters or words which show degrees. Now, the institute has some major restrictions with respect to your designation or description. And section 7 says that forget about prefix, suffix, and letters showing your qualification. We'll talk about it later. Let's first talk about description designation. If you are a chartered accountant in practice, you should be known only and only as a chartered accountant and nothing else. Which means a chartered accountant in practice in his professional stationaries like visiting card, letterheads, or wherever there he wants to show himself as someone, he should designate himself only and only as a chartered accountant. Or you don't use anything. So if I say Sarthak Jain, that's okay. But if I'm a CA in practice, I can say Sarthak Jain, that's okay. I can also say Sarthak Jain chartered accountant. That's it. But I cannot say Sarthak Jain chartered accountant, accounting and auditing expert. I cannot use any other description. Forget that, I cannot even say experienced chartered accountant. I can just designate myself as chartered accountant. That's it. If I'm a CA in practice, if I want to say Sarthak Jain, founder Fast Education, and don't want to use chartered accountant designation at all, but I'm a CA in practice, suppose, which I'm not, then in that particular case, the institute again will have problem. I cannot do that. Why? The rule is very simple. If you are a chartered accountant in practice, we want you to designate yourself as chartered accountant only. If you don't want to use chartered accountant designation, that's fine. But if you use any designation or description, it should be only that of chartered accountant. Full stop. So here, if Anushka Kohli, let's say she is a chartered accountant and she is using 2 designations at a time, this is not okay. You have to find errors. This is not okay. If she is a CA in practice, she can use only chartered accountant and cannot mention director men in blue. So if you are a CA in practice, you have only one choice, which is only use the designation of chartered accountant. So CA here means the chartered accountant designation. But if you are not a CA in practice, then the institute says either you use chartered accountant or you use any one or more designations. But you will not use them together, separate, and any one of them. So you don't create 2 visiting cards also, you just create one stationery and you designate yourself either a chartered accountant or whatever you want to. So if you are director in Reliance and you want to show that you are a director in Reliance and you are a chartered accountant also, so you can show director Reliance Industries. You're also a director in Mumbai Indians, you're also a director in State Bank. You can mention all those things. But don't use chartered accountant. If you mention chartered accountant, then you cannot use any other designation. So either chartered accountant or others. If you are CA, not in practice. Can't use both. So in this case, Anushka Kohli, whether she is in practice or not in practice, in both cases, she will be in a contravention of section 7, because no case can you use any designation other than that of chartered accountant along with chartered accountant. So let's conclude this like this. If you are married, you should either go alone, or if you are going, go with your wife. Who's your wife? Chartered accountant designation. But if you're just engaged and not yet married, you have option either to take your fiancé along or take your ex along. But don't take both of them together. That's what the logic is. Anyways, that was weird. But what about the prefix CA dot which we use, or the degrees which we use? So the institute said, okay, we will clarify on that. One, we have no restriction for any prefix. As far as suffix is concerned, ICI has no guidelines on suffix. As far as prefix is concerned, it is unrestricted. You can use any number of prefix and you can use CA prefix whether you are in practice, not in practice, whether you use chartered accountant designation or you don't. So using the CA prefix is generally permitted for every chartered accountant. If you want to use multiple prefix CS, you can use either CA first or you can use it later. No conditions, just one rule. What? You can use the CA prefix to your own choice if you are a chartered accountant. As far as the degree abbreviations are concerned, you can only put it off recognized universities or institutes which have been notified by ICI or foreign bodies with whom ICI has entered into some kind of a mutual arrangement or partnership. So here BCom should be from a university. ACA is Associate Chartered Accountant. ACS is Associate Company Secretary. So CS Institute, CMA Institute are recognized institutes by the institute. MCom should be from a university. LLB should be from a university. What is not permitted is, let's say, CPA USA, CFA USA, or ICFI. These are not from approved institutes. But yes, CPA from Australia, because ICI has done an MOU with them, this is permitted. How will we know what MOUs we have done? We will discuss that later. Briefly, it is there in our syllabus. So having said this, what I'm trying to tell you here is the institute has given you every particular detail about what prefix, suffix, designation, description, or abbreviated degrees to be used. And what are the rules? We will discuss this later. Using description letters to indicate membership of other approved institute, there is no problem. There is no restriction, provided it is in the form of abbreviations. So this is basically talking about BCom, MCom, LLB, etc. Prefix here, no restriction. Merchant banker, advisor to an issue tax consultant, director of company, member of political party, position and club cost accountant. These are all not permitted. For a CA in practice. For a CA not in practice, either he uses this or he uses chartered accountant. You are allowed to use insolvency, professional and registered valuer. These are two exceptions. Because these are two central government permitted roles which a chartered accountant can take under the Companies Act. So these are the two roles which are exceptions, which you can also mention along with chartered accountant. So if Anushka Kohli wants to mention chartered accountant, insolvency, professional, registered valuer, she can mention all three designations together. Even she is a CA in practice, these two are exceptions. More on this in class 7, part 1, schedule 7. We will talk about it. What is this? The CA Institute provides you a diploma on information systems audit, which is useful if you are wanting to get into practice. It helps in systems audit. So if you have done this, you will show that in your designation, or in fact an abbreviated form as ISA bracket ICSAI, Information System Auditor by ICI. Foreign institutes with whom we have done MOU or MRA, what is that? We'll discuss that. We are permitted to mention their membership. Can we be a merchant banker or an advisor to an issue? So we can apply for SEBI's registration as investment advisor. And there we can act as advisor or consultant. But merchant banker is definitely not something which can be associated to our names. If we are an advisor to our consultant in SEBI or filing documents, we can be shown as advisor or consultant. But that does not mean I can use these designations in my visiting card. You can please cut this particular thing. Now there is no concept of category 4 merchant bankers. Category 4 merchant bankers are now only termed as advisor or consultant to an issue. So you in any case are not allowed to use these designations. I mean, no need to cut. You can just simply put it like, you're permitted to register only as advisor or consultant to an issue. There used to be SEBI registration of advisor or consultant done earlier in the category of category 4 merchant banker. It is a merchant banker who's only a consultant and does not do underwriting. But now that categorization is no more, so you get register yourself as actually an advisor or consultant. So you can do that. Okay. Now there is one big problem, which was with respect to what happens if a chartered accountant is holding an office with the CA Institute. Now, if you are a president of ICI, suppose if you wish to. Nice. Feels good to think about it. Really? So I'm the president of ICI and I have to make a visiting card, and in that visiting card I'm a CA in practice. I mention chartered accountant. I cannot mention anything else apart from that. But I want to mention president ICI because if I go to meet someone, let's say for example I was in US, so I thought I'll meet the president of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. So I went to AICPA. I spoke to the receptionist there and I said, I want to meet the president of AICPA. He's in sight. And then the reception front desk executive asked me, who are you? And I said, I'm the president of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, the second largest global accounting body. And she said, oh, hello, nice to meet you. I'm the president of United States of America and my name is Kamala Harris / Donald Trump. I said, why are you joking? And she said, who started it first? And he said, I mean, we're not joking. I'm really the president. You can see my visiting card. And she said, yeah, I saw your business card which you gave to me at the very beginning and nowhere is it mentioned President ICI. How can I assume you are a president? And then I opened the ICI's website and I showed the photograph and I said, see, he's the same guy. And then she saw and she said, yeah, this photo resembles to you, though this looks better, the photograph. I'm sorry. I didn't realize. I was actually not aware. I just relied on your business card, but you should have mentioned it in the business card because it was a big embarrassment for you. My apologies for that. Now you please tell me. This looks to be a little weird. There has to be a solution for it. So what the institute has said is that office bearers of ICI will get their visiting cards printed from ICI, in which we will mention their name with prefix CA and we'll mention their office positions like President ICI, like Chairman Branch of so-and-so city, like member of such and such committee. We will print their visiting cards. They can use those cards. And once their office is over, they should return the unused cards. But in no case the cards which they themselves print for themselves or the letterheads should mention President ICI in it. My God. So it will be printed by ICI and what will be the content? Name, prefix of chartered accountant as in CA prefix. Then whatever is their office bearing position that will be mentioned and their address will be given at the back side of the card. But their firm name will not be mentioned there. The institute does not make letterheads for every office bearer of their name except of the president and the vice president. Every other letterhead is simply made in the name of the position, like letterhead of chairman of, let's say, for example, Chennai branch will not have the name of the person, but simply mention from the desk of chairman of the Chennai branch of Southern Institute, Regional Council of ICI, whatever. So, chairman and other letterheads would be in designation and not personal name, and others don't get a personalized letterhead for them. They just simply use the common letterhead of C Institute. So let's conclude this discussion. Are you a chartered accountant? Yes, sir. What designation can you use in your professional stationery or wherever you want to designate yourself? If you are a CA in practice, only chartered accountant. If you are a CA not in practice, either chartered accountant or any other one or more designations. Any exception to this? Yes, sir. You can use designation of insolvency professional merchant banker along with chartered accountant, whether in practice or not. Any other exception? Yes, sir. If you are a member of the institute and having any office position with the institute, then your visiting card will additionally be given to you by the institute, which will mention your office position there, but it will be printed by ICI. Any other exception? No. What about prefix? Unrestricted use of CA prefix by any chartered accountant in practice, not in practice, whether he's using chartered accountant designation or not. Suffix, there is no provision, so you can use. Abbreviation showing degrees, you can use if it is from any university of the India which is recognized, or institutions which are recognized by ICI, which is like Company Secretary Institute, CMAs, IIMs, IITs, and even all foreign bodies with whom ICI is entered into an MOU. Any other thing to remember? Yes, if you have done DISA from ICI, mention it as ISA bracket ICI. Apart from that, one we will discuss if you hold dual COP. We'll talk about it in class 7 later. In case of dual COP, where you are permitted, let's say, to hold COP of CS as well as CA both. Suppose the CS institute has permitted. Then you can have two separate stationery, one where you designate yourself as chartered accountant and one where you designate yourself as company secretary. This is one case where you are allowed to have two separate stationery with separate designations because you are holding two COPs. Same for advocate or all, but real life you are not allowed to have two COPs because the other institute prohibits. ICI has no problems. Cool, that's wonderful. So let's move on. And the next one is section numbers. So after 7, it is 8 disabilities for membership. If you are not 21 years of age, you will not be allowed to enter into the register of members, since you are technically not a chartered accountant, even if you can clear your C exams. You've seen in the past. You've seen in the past that there have been cases where students even have secured All India Rank 1 at 19 years of age. They technically cannot tell themselves that they are chartered accountant. They can only say they are CA final pass. They will be saying they are chartered accountant only once they complete 21 years. Then they apply for membership and they get it. If you are of unsound mind, only if I'm of unsound mind, I would have been doing chartered accountancy course. And you're saying unsound mind people are disqualified from getting CA membership. So nobody will get it. Ha ha ha. Very funny. So that is why the institute has said that your unsound mind and your unsoundness of mind is certified by a competent coach. Right? So you know what happens is if somebody goes mentally ill or becomes an idiot or permanently incapable to think of, then you have to take a certificate from the court and then we appoint guardians who take care of their properties and other things. So for that reason, it is mentioned that you should be adjudged by a competent court. Then obviously you are disabled from being a member as well. So you will be, your name will be striked off and you are no more a member of the institute. Undischarged insolvent. So you are insolvent and your assets are still under realization, your liabilities are still to be settled. Till that process is over, institute will take your degree. Now, an official receiver will attach all your properties. He'll get the whole stuff. He'll realize all your money. And then he says, okay, I've been able to realize 1 crore rupees from your assets, but your liability are 2 crore rupees. So every creditor will be eligible to get 50 paisa in a rupee if they are all at the same level. So they'll get 50%. And then finally, we will get a certificate from the official receiver saying that, or liquidator, that all your past liabilities are now settled off and we've done a full and final settlement and now they cannot make any claim on you. That's it. And now you can start contracting or entering into contract once again. If you would have studied this in your CA foundation level in laws, Indian Contract Act. Capacity to contract. So they'll once again become eligible to enter into contracts and their past liabilities are all settled. So will the institute restore the membership once you are a discharged insolvent? So discharged insolvent will not get its membership back if his insolvency was due to other than misfortune. So if you became insolvent because of bad luck, that you started a business, it didn't work out very well, the institute will restore your membership once it is, your insolvency is cleared. But if it was due to fraud, let's say like Harshad Mehta, Ketan Parekh, Telgi scam, these kind of scams you've done some frauds, and it is not just bad luck, then in that particular case, sorry, institute is never ever going to restore your membership. So it's gone forever. Next, convicted as in found guilty and not just accused of an offense. What kind of an offense? Something immoral you've done, in which there is a punishment in the law of imprisonment. You can skip transportation. I mean, nowadays it's not there. So you've done any kind of an offense which involves an immoral activity as defined in the Indian Penal Code, now named as or renamed as Bharat Nyaya Sanhita, as defined there. So if you are convicted of an offense involving moral turpitude, immoral acts, which is punishable with imprisonment. So please understand, what do we mean by punishable with? So if you get an MCQ which says that a chartered accountant has done an immoral act and a court has found him guilty and convicted him to either, or let's say convicted him with a fine of 5 lakh rupees. The law had provisions to fine the guilty up to rupees 5 lakh with or without imprisonment up to X number of months. But the court, considering the past background and the intentions, has not awarded any imprisonment, but only a monetary penalty, though the court could have awarded it. Will you be disqualified under Section 8? The answer is yes, because the word used is punishable and not punished. So if it was convicted of an offense involving moral turpitude and punished with imprisonment, then you will be held guilty, or you will be basically held disqualified only if you are punished with imprisonment. But here it does not say punished with imprisonment, it says punishable. So if you are held guilty of any offense under, let's say for example, under the Indian Penal Code or the Revised Act, Section 420, suppose you are held liable for frauds, and that section has penalty up to 5 lakh and or imprisonment up to 6 months, you were given only 5 lakh rupees of penalty, but no imprisonment. In that particular case also you will be disqualified. Why? Because that section under which you are held guilty is also having an imprisonment penalty. That means the offense which you have done, that offense was punishable with imprisonment. This is what is to be seen. It should not be of technical nature and committed by him in his professional capacity. So if you have done any other offense which is not of technical nature, as in technical nature meaning you did something, as in let's say for example, you came out of India and you got some goods along with you. You're not knowing these are prohibited, but they were banned items. And during customs, you voluntarily declared that yes, we have got these particular goods, and then they realized these are banned items, these are drugs which are not permitted to be brought to India. And because of that, you've been held guilty and you've been, let's say for example, punished with a fine. But this is a technical offense. I mean, technically you are not aware about it. So an offense which is not of technical nature, if you have committed that in professional capacity. So which means that in the capacity of a chartered accountant, you have done an offense which is not of technical nature. That means you did your audit very well, but you're not really sure that you should have seen much, but then later on it was found that you could have seen much. So that's a technical offense. A non-technical offense committed by a chartered accountant would be that he's hand in gloves involved with his client in doing any kind of tax frauds or something. In that case, also institute has the right to take away your membership. Unless if you get a pardon from the court, council, or central government has given you an exemption. Okay. So it's like, you did some moral turpitude, you were imprisonment, you became disqualified. Then you were released and you were a very good prisoner in the prison. You inculcated very good habits amongst the prisoner. In fact, you taught a couple of prisoners CA foundation. One of them also cleared it. So when you came out, the court is so very happy with your behavior, so that the court gave you a condition or permission. Okay. Chill. No problem. We are removing your disabilities and now you can restore your membership of CA. So you can. And otherwise, the institute has the right that it can, for any misconduct which you do, take away your membership. So they have a general right, which we will discuss in the various misconducts. Section 8, not really very, very important, but it's not that it has never been asked. It talks about disabilities. When you write in the exam, do not write it as qualifications for becoming a CA, but disabilities which will prevent you from getting the CA degree or will take away your CA degree. Got it, boys and girls? Nice. Moving further. My God, sir, this is becoming too much. Oh, is it? A lot of theory provisions here. So let's cover up section 27, which is branch offices. And then we will continue it later. What is branch office? Tell me one thing, guys. Can a CA open as many offices as he wants? Oh, nice, sir. If he wants to expand, he should. He can. But the problem is sometimes people use this as an opportunity. So the institute said, okay, a chartered accountant can open as many offices as he wants. We will not prevent, prohibit, restrict. But when we said we will not prohibit or even restrict, people started using it as a deceptive act, an act to fool fraudsters. Like what? There was a tender in the newspaper which said that we are looking for chartered accountants, CA firms and practicing chartered accountants to do stock verification of our stocks which are lying across the country. And this was no other than RBI. And they said that we want chartered accountants to verify the currency stock which is lying across country. And they said that these are the 8 cities where we have our stocks to be physically verified every month and a report being submitted. So we will prefer a CA firm who has offices in all these cities. This guy, what he did is all these cities, he contacted any of his relative, friends, anybody, took their address and said that, yeah, we have branch offices across all these places. And submitted as a response to that tender or inquiry with the expectation of getting work. Now, if he gets work, obviously RBI will think that if he's saying he has offices across these places, they'll presume there are offices. But then eventually, even if the work was given to this particular person, they will end up realizing that these were all fake offices. That is why the institute said that we cannot just generally let people advertise that they are place of business across various places apart from their main office, unless and until it is actually a real office for them. So how do we ensure that people only advertise their offices if they are real offices? So what the institute did is they gave a different, they came out with a different logic altogether. Number one, the institute said that if you are a CA practice or a firm of CA in practice, and if you have more than one office in India, it is treated as a branch office. So whenever you register yourself as a CA firm or a member in practice, you have to give the address of your office, which is treated as your main office. Now, if you want to open up any other office, it will be treated as your branch office. If you want to open up a branch office, you can. But every such office should be under charge of an independent, separate member. And this member should be obviously a member, say your partner or else your full-time employee. not just your friend relative. Plus, he should either visit that particular branch at least 182 days in a year, which is April to March. But sometimes you may not visit the branch very often because you may be at the client location mostly. So you should at least reside in that particular city where your branch is for 182 days in a year. Either of this. Then we will say that yes, you have a branch opened which is under separate charge of a member. And you have to give the list of this particular branch as soon as you open within 30 days, as soon as you close within 30 days, along with the name of the person in charge. But the institute can exempt any CN practice or firm. From intimating to the institute when they open a branch or close the branch. They can exempt, but otherwise generally you have to inform. And this information is to be sent in 30 days of opening or closing the branch. However, please remember, ICI says that under section 27, branch only means an office which is either advertised as a branch. That means in your website, your letterhead, visiting card, professional stationery, anywhere you are mentioning the address of that branch, or you are putting up your firm's name board outside that branch. So if you are fixing the board of the firm, or you are advertising, showing it in your stationery etc. as branch, only then. Many a time what happened is CA firms used to take up offices somewhere away just to put stationery and as a storeroom. Now, technically, that is also a branch, so you'll have to have a member in charge for it. So they said, no. Just don't put your firm's name board there and don't show it as a branch in any of the stationery. We will not treat it as a branch. And if it is not a branch, you can open any number of such branches if you want. Obviously, this is for facilitating your stores keeping or your administration office working. So if a CA wants to open up 10 branches in a city only for the purpose of working so that employees can come to the nearest place and work, and is ready not to put the name boards in any of the places and even not mention it in any stationery website that these are our offices, section 27 is not applicable on that. So you need not have a separate member in charge or intimate ICI about it. So it is only you who knows that there are branches, your employees know about it, nobody else. It's like that. That's fine. So we don't prevent or prohibit or restrict those situations. Where we have a problem is where you tell people or where you put your firm name boards that these are our branches or this is our office. Now, what is this particular provision? The provision once again is open up a branch, but ensure that you have a separate member who is in charge of that branch. That member should be a chartered accountant member, your partner or full-time paid employee. And every branch should be in charge of a separate partner or a full-time employee. And he should actually be visiting or at least living in that city for 182 days in a year. Then we will say you are complied with provisions of section 27. So if for getting that RBI stock audit, I have to have 8 branches, I should have 8 places, and all these places should be either in charge of my partner CA or my full-time employee CA. If I have no partner CA, no employee CAs, I cannot open these 8 branches, obviously, because I'll not have a member in charge for that. If I intend to show these as branches in any tender document, professional stationery, website, anywhere. So I will not be able to do that or fool the others out of it. Now there are a few other rules. Any opening or closing of branch within 30 days inform to ICI. खुद का name board as in own firm CA's name board can be placed before his residence, but not the firm's name board. Obviously, some chartered accountant have their office in their residence itself. That's a different thing. Then your Firm name board can be put at the residence because you are having your office there. But what I'm saying is, if you are living at a place which is not your office, don't put your firm's name board there. Just put your own personal name board if you wish to. General rule is one person should be in charge of one branch of the firm. You can change it during the year in case if there is a death resignation for the remaining period. There is no requirement to maintain an attendance register or something. In case if inquiry comes, you should be able to justify that he was residing in that city or visiting the branch for these many days. Now, there are two exceptions to this general rule. And the first exception is a temporary office in a hilly area. If you have one or more offices in a hilly area is an area which is above a certain square meters from sea level, located at that location, it may so happen that you may have problems, especially during winters, for people to approach. So it is permitted that once in a year for maximum 3 months. So it is not 1 3 times. Only one time in a year at a stretch of maximum 3 months. You can shift your office from your hilly area to any nearby plain area. And the old office, your original office, can have the firm name board. It can be open, but there will be no business done there. It will be only open that if any client or any letter comes, you can receive. So for correspondence. And you can do all your business activities from the shifted or the temporary office in the nearby area. In that office, you can put the firm's name board because people are coming there only. So let's say I had an office in Ooty. During winters, I shifted to a nearby plain area, let's say Coimbatore, Kunur, whatever. And my Kunur office will be live for 3 months. I can put my firm's name board there. Though I will not be able to mention it in my website or any other place as the place of business. I can show it as a temporary office, but not a place of business as a regular office. After 3 months, I'll have to shut down that office, remove the firm's name board and everything from there. And 30 days rule also applies to temporary office. So as soon as I open within 30 days and as I close within 30 days, I have to inform to ICA. For this temporary office, I need not have any separate member in charge because it is like shifting of the main office or any branch office. This rule applies to your main office, branch office, any office. If one CA firm has 10 hilly area offices, all 10 offices can be shifted to nearby plain area. When the shifting can be done, so technically the institute says you can shift it once in a year for maximum 3 months provided you inform to the institute during winters. So the information to be given to the institute is during winters. So that obviously means that you can shift it during winters only. But technically nowhere it is mentioned that you can shift only in winters. It says you have to inform during winters. So it says before commencement of winter and after close of office you have to inform. So technically if you get a question in the exam that we have shifted office during April, May, June months to a nearby plain area, is that permitted? We'll say yes, provided before winters we have informed the institute that we are going to shift this office for a 3 months period, which is vague, strange, but yes, this is what it is. So this is one exception which is for hilly area office. Now let's come to another exception. So in this you need not have a member in charge. Then we have a second office exemption. Second office exemption means you are allowed to open up second office and not additional office. So if your CA firm has only one main office and no branches, and you want to open up one more office, but you are a proprietor, you don't have full-time employees or whatever, you are permitted to open a second office. Just that you open the second office either in the same building, same premise, or in the same city where your main office is. However far it is in the same city. Or within 50 kilometers from the municipal limits of the city of the main office. Then you don't need to have a member in charge for that office. But you will have to inform ICA within 30 days of opening it up. You can put the firm name board, show it as a place of business. You need not have a separate member in charge for it. You are exempted. That's one exception. But if your CA firm already has, let's say, one main office and one branch office handled by one of the partner in any other city, and now you want to open a second office, this rule will not apply. This is only for a second office. Second office means second, not additional office. If you already have two offices, this exemption is not available. So it is situated either in the same premise, same city, or 50 kilometer. Now, how to calculate 50 kilometer is interesting. So let's say in city X, you have your first office and second office, then this is okay. Irrespective of the distance, it could be infinite. Whatever is the distance between these two offices acceptable. But if you have your first office located in city X and your second office is located in city Y. So let's say this second office is located here. So the distance should be, this aerial distance you'll have to calculate, this should be till here. But it should be seen not from the head office, but from the municipal limits of the city in which head office is. So just to illustrate in this example, suppose your head office is located somewhere here. Now the municipal limits of the city start from here. This area is 15 kilometers. So your office is in a city X and the city X limit extends to 15 kilometers. After 15 kilometers, some other city starts. So you will start counting from here. Let's say from here, the other city Y is 35 kilometer distance. And after you enter city Y, another 10 kilometers to reach to the branch office. So we will basically calculate 35 plus 10, that is 45 kilometers, which is within 50 kilometers. So this is permitted. Even though technically the total distance between head office and branch office is 60 kilometers, which is 45 plus 15. We don't have to see that. Now this question, if you see in the exams, many a times there's a big problem in it. What they do is they say that we've opened up a main office in Chennai and we have opened up another office in suburb of Chennai. Now remember, in this case, Institute has given all the questions, answers to all these questions, assuming suburb is a different city, which not necessarily always may happen, but they have assumed it like that. So because if it is in a different city, now we need to see the municipal limit to the branch office distance. Now, normally in these questions, what they do is they only give the distance from the main office. So they say, I've opened up a branch office in the suburb of Chennai and my main office is in Chennai, and the distance between these two offices is 80 kilometers, and I have not appointed any chartered accountant member as in charge for that office. Is this office okay? Or have I contravened any provisions of the Act? So ideally the answer is we don't want 80 kilometer distance, which is office to office. We want distance from municipal limits of Chennai city to that office. If it is less than equal to 50 kilometer, okay, otherwise not okay. But that distance is not given. So in your answer, you will have to assume that 80 kilometer distance from office main to branch is also the distance from municipal limits of that city to the main office. And hence, this will not be permitted because it is more than 50 kilometers. So there are two assumptions. Suburb is separate city, and second, total distance between two offices is also the distance between the branch office and the municipal limits of the city of the main office. You have to assume this. When you see the question bank today, while solving the questions, you will find a lot of questions like this. Just to confuse, sometimes they'll also tell that for that office, I have appointed income tax commissioners retired to handle that office. They are full-time visiting that office 360 days in a year, and they are very competent, but they are not chartered accountants. We'll say, sorry, they are not eligible members in church, even if they are competent, because they are not members, even they are visiting. So I have to have a member, and that too my partner or full-time employee, to take charge of a branch which is not falling in the second office exemption limit. Even in second office exemption, I have to give 30 days intimation. So this is all your provision with respect to branch office. Also remember one small thing, guys. If you get a question in the exam that a CF has put a name board office form in the residence. Is this permitted? You will have to say that is not permitted. He has contravened with the provisions of the section 27. Don't say that will be treated as a branch office, and if it is in the same city, he can claim second office exemption. Please don't start deriving answers. It's clear. You cannot put the name board of your firm at your residence. If you want to open your office at residence, you have to follow the procedures of intimating IC and all. You cannot presume that. So the rule is name board of the firm only at the office, not at residence. This, guys, covers up your discussion for section 27. There are few penalty provisions, not really at all important. You can just simply skip them. I'll just quickly cover it. If you're not a CA and you say that I'm a chartered accountant, or you're not a CA in practice and you say I'm a CA in practice, and if you get caught, you will be penalized, and the penalty is, oh my God, first time when you get caught, up to 1,000 rupees, not even exact 1,000, up to 1,000, could be less. But if you get caught again, it could be extended up to 5,000, but up to one attempt of imprisonment. Oh, sorry, up to one attempt as in up to 6 months of imprisonment. As an imprisonment meaning? Sorry. You can be jailed up to 6 months. Second, if you are not the CA Institute, but you make any comment as if it is an official comment of the CA Institute, or you create any institute in the name of ICI, forcing people to feel that it is like Institute of Chartered Accountants, then you can be penalized up to 1,000 first time, second time 5,000, and or imprisonment up to 6 months. Same. And if you allow any unqualified member meaning a person who is a CA, but not, let's say, a CA in practice, to sign on the report. So we'll study this later in class 12, part 1, schedule 1. What are these clauses? We'll discuss in the next session. That in the CA firm, the signing powers are only with chartered accountant who are partners of the firm and not CA employees. And if you allow any employee CA to sign, then in that case, you also will be held guilty. So because that employee CA has signed, he has done wrong. That is another thing, but you are also guilty. And you will be penalized under section 26, first time 5,000 to 1 lakh, and double of it subsequent 10,000 to 2 lakhs penalty. So here we have minimum 5,000 and 10,000, and imprisonment also doubles up to 1 year for second time. Whenever you find a red bracket like this, these are those provisions which are not there in your ICI study material. In your whole book, I would have included 10% of such cases which are not in your ICI study material, but included. Why? Because maybe ICI has missed it. These were provisions which were there in the previous module or material, and it is better to go through them. They are definitely not important, very unlikely to be asked, but still I'm covering it. So you'll not find this in the ICI module, but I will still suggest just have a glimpse of it. Members, I told you there are two types of members, fellow and associates. No, we didn't discuss. Okay, associates use abbreviation ACA, fellow use FCA. Who becomes a fellow? Very simple. Only after 5 years of continuous practice COP holding, you are entitled to get fellowship. You don't get it automatically. You have to apply to the institute. If you've been in 5 years of continuous practice, institute has to give you fellow membership. They cannot refuse. It is your right to ask. It is their duty to give. So continuous 5 years of practice, apply and you will get it. And then you will be a fellow CA, your membership fees will increase. Henceforth, you'll have to pay a little more fees. So that's why some people don't apply. The benefit is that you can say that, you're more experienced chartered accountant. It looks. But I say I am not into practice, but I have been doing that kind of a work which gives me an experience similar to a CA in practice. Then also you can apply to the institute that I have an equivalent of CA in practice experience of continuous 5 years. So you can apply to the institute, and then the institute will assess your application on merits and may give you the fellowship degree. Once you are a fellow, you will always remain a fellow, even if you stop practicing later. So I am a fellow chartered accountant. I was in practice earlier for 5 years. I applied for the membership. I got it. Then I stopped practicing. So I still continue and I'm eligible to continue the fellow membership. ACA is by default what you happen. So as soon as you become a member, you become an associate chartered accountant. And the last thing which we'll discuss for today is something which I've already told you, Section 25. Companies are not allowed to engage into practice of accountancy. So if you want to register a company, you can only provide management, consultancy, and other services and not attestation services. There's a concept of corporate form of practice. This is something which we'll discuss tomorrow in the next session. That's it for the day. Thank you very much, guys. And you should now be eligible to practice questions. And let me tell you from where till where. So just go to the index. ISBA code questions you cannot, but you can try all these questions of 19.2 section, which is these many number of questions. Sequentially, you can follow this. And you should practice these questions, go through the answers. If you have any doubts, I would suggest scan the QR code. How to get access for the QR code? You would go out a mail for fast Android app application activation, or you can download it simply from the Play Store and register it with the same number with which you have registered for your lectures. And in my subscriptions, you can find this batch of yours, which will be titled as Audit Exam Oriented or Fast Track Full English Batch. Once you access that and you go to books, you'll be able to see these books in digital format. And then you can, if you don't want to scan the QR codes, you can also kind of simply see the index of the question, click on the question, and directly jump onto those questions. And you can listen to the audios. It's just that it will be in mixed Hindi English, mixed language. We still don't have it for pure English. So try these questions, and every day in this exam-oriented batch, this is what you have to do. I'll give you some tidbits here and there of how to tackle questions, but majority solution of the questions you'll have to do it. This is the major difference between the regular and the fast track or exam-oriented batch. The number of questions practiced is much lesser, and the speed is a little faster. The number of examples and all what we take in regular batch are more. We take more real life cases to discuss. Here it is purely exam focused. That's it for the day. I hope you enjoyed the lecture. Wish you all the very best. Let's see you in the next class. Bye.